Okay, good day, my people. Welcome to today's segment. You know the vibes, you know what we do here. Basically, is another day of learning Python with data science, day 17. So today we're going to venture into another topic, and the topic name is what is pandas in data analysis. That's basically what we're going to be looking at. In the last class, we basically looked at NumPy. Today we're going to be looking at pandas. Like I said, I'm going to be helping you guys. I'm basically going to explain pandas on how pandas is, what we should expect from pandas, and we'll just go into the practical aspect of pandas. So not talking much, let's go into it and let's see what we can make out of it. Stay tuned.
Smart Sound.
Basically, before we venture into any particular topic, I have to tell you the uses and the importance of that particular library. That is one thing I always say. Bloggers is just a place for me to be. Like, I can just basically go into a library and don't tell you the importance of that library, right? Exactly. So first thing of why pandas is very important is, number one, efficient data handling. What do I mean by that? Pandas allows you to load, clean, manipulate large data sets easily, enabling analysts to focus on drawing insight instead of handling raw data complexities. Have you gone through Excel file before? Have you tried to do an Excel arrangement? You can see how tiresome that thing is, right? But when you bring this to pandas and you know how to use this library I'm basically talking about, it just saves you the stress of handling the data complexities, arranging them, making sure they're all right, manipulations and all this stuff, making sure is the way you want it to be. Pandas make it easy for you with just one line of code, right? So that is one importance of pandas. Second importance is powerful data structure. What it means by powerful data structure, it provides data frame and series which are flexible for organizing, analyzing, visualizing structured data in rows and columns. It provides a data frame. That is one thing we're going to venture into. You're going to see the practical aspect of what I'm talking about. It provides a data frame and structure for those data to be stored in rows and columns, just like your Excel. It's going to give it a good data frame, a good table, a good looking table in every analysis you basically want to perform, right? That is one other thing why pandas is very, 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 very important. Third is integrations with other libraries. What do I mean by integration with other libraries? It simply means pandas work seamlessly with libraries like Matplotlib, NumPy, Seaborn, providing end-to-end solution for data analysis and visualization. It basically helps you pre-processing. Pre-processing in essence means that it helps you process your data, cleans your data, manipulate whatever you need to manipulate, make sure that your data is all right. Then move to Matplotlib, where Matplotlib now works with the pandas with the pre-processed data that pandas just performed for you and give you a good visualization which you can now use for reports. Can you see that? So it works with all that library seamlessly without any struggles. It's built-in data analysis function. What do I mean by built-in data analysis function? With pandas, you can perform operations like filtering, grouping, merging, and aggregations quickly, saving time for complex computation. Exactly. With pandas, you can basically do merging, grouping, sorting, aggregations, all that stuff, and saving a lot of computation, always trying to figure out what to do in Excel. All these things takes time in Excel. That is what I'm basically saying. Learn Python so that you can be able to do all these things seamlessly. All you just have to do is keep your head down, learn the basics of Python, and you will be good to go in your data analysis, in analyzing seamlessly. So there's a built-in functions for that. Those analyses, they are built-in functions that basically make your work seamless, makes it easy. Those are the four importance of pandas. Now, the next thing is bloggers. Show us how it's been used. Give us the practical aspect of it. Let's just see you manifest all these things you've spoken about pandas. What other channel can do that? What are you waiting for? Hit on that like button, hit on the subscribe button if you're new here. Basically, we're going to dive down to my PC and we're going to see how we can basically implement pandas into analysis in general. Okay, so let's go. So we are here in my VS Code like always. Now we're going to create a folder. You know how we basically do this. If you don't know, go to our playlist. You're going to see how we've come this far, like starting from day one to this extent. So now we're going to go to the next thing, which is day 17, and which is pandas. Last class we talked about NumPy. That's what you see there. Now let's go straight to what? Day 17, and day 17 is pandas.ipynb. Hit enter. So we have all these things situated here. So the first thing we're going to do is to bring in, okay, let's remove this. Like always, bring this mark down. Okay, so bring in the code aspect. Always select your canine over here. Select your canine. So the first thing I always do is import the library that probably I may need. We've talked about NumPy. I'm going to import my two guys, which is import NumPy. As always, it's np. Then we'll also import pandas as pd. So those are the two now. We run them to work. But for you, it may not work. It may tell you module pandas does not exist or is not available, is not installed. What you're going to do, go to Ctrl J, just hit Ctrl J, and it's going to bring out this layout for you. You're going to make sure you're in your terminal, not any other place, but make sure that this blue icon, this lining is in terminal. Then what you're going to do now is to say pip install pandas. Make sure your laptop is connected to the internet and you're going to have it installed. So for me, it's already satisfied. That's why I have that there. Okay, so now let's go to the main basics of pandas. So we're going to use NumPy and pandas to create a dummy data. After creating a dummy data with NumPy, bringing in those numbers, all those features of NumPy, then I will now use pandas to crown it all, to give it a good frame. Then you can basically now see the importance of NumPy and the importance of pandas. You can basically look at those two and basically say, okay, this is the real important. We can basically use any of this library because it's already imported to the environment, it's already here. So now we can use this particular library. We have the dummy data. So dummy data. So for this data, we're going to basically start up with how the data is being used, how we can basically create a data using NumPy and pandas, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is to get the ID. The ID is basically the index location in a particular table. That means where you find the index numbers. And what are index numbers? Index numbers are known as identifier, right? Okay, mp.arrange. So mp.arrange, how many index do I need? So I want from 1 to 40. So in the index, I want it to arrange from 1 to 40. So you have to add 41 for 40 to be inclusive. So I'm going to come here and say column. Then in front of the column, what am I going to say? I'm going to input all those things I want it to show. So I will say January. So for January, we also have February, we also have March. Okay, we are now done with the column aspect of the table. So now are the rows, the values that is going to be contained inside of that table. So now how do we go about this? The first thing I'm going to do is to create a variable values, and the values I want it to be np.random.randint. Then over there I want to put a certain amount I want to see. So let's say a sales, this is like a sales report for January, February, March, right? So we just want to create a random value amount. Let's say for each of these certain columns, what are the value amounts? So that's what I'm going to basically put inside. So let's say their value amount is always ranging from, let's say, $200 to $500, right? So what I want to be saying is, let's say from $100, so $100 to, let's say, $500, right? So how many places do I want to see this? So this is where things kind of get complicated. So for us to be able to have this certain area, we have to know the column and the row, how many they are, so that this particular MP will be able to distribute it over evenly across the table. Because if you don't do this, it's not going to be able to distribute it, right? So how do we do this particular thing? What I'm going to do is multiply the ID times the column. That is what basically we're going to do to get this particular one. We'll say 40, which is the index, times the column, which is 3 columns. 40 times 3, which is 120. So we're going to put 120 as the total even numbers that we want to see. But if you can remember in the previous class when I was talking about mp.rounded.random, there is something that I said which is known as seed. And seed, like I said, is used to plant that particular value from not changing. Remember, these are just random numbers that is basically generating. So whenever you run this code and you want to see that constant value to be there, what can you do? You basically come over there and write this code, mp.random.seed. So in this seed, you put 1 inside of it. So whenever it generates, it just remain with that one constant value. It just remain only with that constant value that you need it to be at. All of these certain places are only numpy, right? We've not used anything concerning pandas yet. Now it's now time to introduce the main guy for today, which is pandas. So everything that we have here, we're basically done, right? So now we're not going to bring in pandas to basically bring out these things. And before doing that, we have to do something. We have to reshape all this. Remember, if you print out this value, let's say I say values and I run this, you can see if you say values, you can see how it looks like, right? It just basically looks randomly on its own and it doesn't even make sense, right? Everything is just all in an array form. So we're going to say values should be equals to values dot reshape. So what am I reshaping this into? The first thing is the row followed by the column. So I say 40 by 3. Can you see that? 40 by 3. That is what I'm reshaping this into. Let's see the outcome of the values. So if we say values and we run this, you can see what we have, right? You can see everything is in an array form like this. But you can see the January score, all these things are not yet there. Why? Is because we have not yet brought the pandas to basically initiate this inside. So now let's bring in the pandas. So we're going to say df, which is known as data frame, and we'll say pd dot data frame. Then inside of the data frame, so what is the data? The data contains the values, the thing that's inside of that table. The data is what? The values, then followed by index. What is the index? The index is the ID. It's going to ask you for the column. What is the column? The column is known as what? Column. It's going to ask you for the columns. So the columns is known as the column. So make sure you put an S here. So now, are you ready to see this thing change from this array form? So we're going to put in just one key, df. So let's run this and let's see. Boom. Can you see that? Boom. It gave us a good data frame. Now we have a good data frame that is arranging all these things in rows. Look at all our index starting from 1 to 40. Can you see that? And now look at all those things distributed, all those values distributed in different months. You can see January, the May 137, 335. You can see how it's been distributed. Bro, this is insane. Like, trust me, this is insane. This is beautiful, right? So this is how it works whenever you bring in your data and you want to transform that raw data into something meaningful. So you can see we already have all these things situated here. Another thing I want us to now do, to now look at, is the df.head. So if you say df.head, how many of these particular columns that we want to see? Do we want to see it in 10 places? Do we want to see it in 5 places? How are we going to be able to see them? So we're going to say what? We want to see them in 10 places. You can see when we run it, we already have only 10 rows. That is another feature for the data frame. And let's say I want to see it from the last 5 of this particular data. What can I do? I can just say df.tail, then into 5. Run that, we already have the last 5 of this table. That thing is selecting multiple columns. How do we select multiple columns? We'll say df into 2 square brackets, then we'll call the names of the columns. The first one is January, and let's say I want to see March, right? So I say March like this. So I say March, then I think it's spelled in a lowercase. So we'll say the head. So we'll say head, run it. You can see we only have this particular January and March. So in default, when you add .head, it just gives you the first 5, right? So what about the rows? Let's say I want to select a certain row inside that I have there. I will say df.loc, then inside of it, and we'll now call the multiple rows I want to say. Remember, our rows is basically using the index. So we have from 1 to 40. So I'll say 20, 21, 25, 27, and 28. Okay, so let's run this and let's see. So you can see basically selected only those index that contains those rows. So this is for selecting multiple rows, while this one is for selecting columns. So you can see how we're basically manipulating the whole data frame just with one line of code. When you know what you're writing, it makes it easy. Just one line of code, we basically selected whatever I want to select, right? So remember, one of the importance of pandas is filtering, grouping, and all this stuff. So let's use one of it here, right? Like I said, so filtering. So let's try to filter something from this particular table. So we'll say hi. Let's say the high sales. So let's say we want to know the high sales for each of the months. How do we know the high sales? We basically have to filter. So I'll say df into df. df is the name of the variable that holds our data frame, that holds our data. Then we'll call the name of the month. So you can see it's already bringing it out for me. So let's say we want to check for January. Then I want to see those particular ones that are above, you know, let's say $400, because it's 500 that we set, right? If we come here and say high sales, which we have there, dot head like this, so it gives us the first 5. Can you see it brings out only those index values that holds above 400? We only specify for January, so it's only January is going to be you're going to be looking at. So you can see January on the 7th it made 457, the 10th day like that. So can you see in filtering out data? Another one is known as what? The grouping. Remember, in the importance of pandas, I talked about the grouping. There's something known as group by in pandas. So this pandas course is basically something that is more in depth. So you need to basically learn a lot, because it's a big part of data analysis. Is a big library, and is a very, very important part of data analysis that you need to know. Let's just give it a name. Let's say summary. That's what I want to call it. So summary, we'll say df dot group by. The group by is basically one of the toolkits inside of pandas that we use to group things. A categorical kind of thing here that we can use to group it. Remember, we need a categorical kind of column. So let's create a categorical column together. Let's try to create a categorical column together, and let's see how it will work. So remember, everything that we have here are all numerical. That means they are numbers. So let's say we want January, February, March, and we want them to have specific type of regions that they are allocated to. So we'll say, let's say west, east, south, and north, right? So each of those particular places are the regions in which those sales are being made or something. We want to create random stuff like that, but it may take a little bit line of code. And you remember our for loop? Exactly. We're still going to use it here to just, you know, try to bring things together. Okay, so let's now go into that. So the first thing I'm going to say is the region. I'm going to create a particular variable like this. So the region, I will now put in a list of regions I want to see. So the first one is the east. So we have all these regions. Now let's bring them and let's see how we can basically write a line of code that will distribute all these things inside of our data for us. df into the region. So the region is what we want to call the table. So df into region. This is the name of the table that we're going to see, region. We're going to open a categorical kind of thing, region. Then we'll say I remember length of region for I in range. What should happen? We say length into df. Okay, so I'm going to explain this particular thing. The first thing is the region, right? So inside of the region, I want to use I as the object to maneuver everything that I'm doing there. So I remember the length. That means the length of everything that we have in this region. Then we go to the next line and now said for I in range length of df. That means the length of the index that we have there. That's what we want to see. So let's see that and let's run it. So say df dot head. Let's see. So you can see now we now have the region into the data. So now I can now go to this my grouping now and now perform whatever I want to perform, right? I can say group region.
Smart sound.
Then over here we have January so dot, let's say max. Okay, so we'll come under here and say summary, run it. Okay, so this region is the issue, so remove this R, run it. So run it, you can see, so we say df dot resect index. So for east we have 379, for north we have 493, for south we have 417, west 481. So you can see how basically we insinuated all of this particular region inside of the data. Then we now looked for the group by. So you can see how it works. Your DF cannot work with a categorical data, so basically you need a categorical data for it to be able to group that thing with the necessary number. Let's say each student's score by their father or mother profession. That means some is a doctor, some is a teacher, someone like that. So you want to group their performance with their parents' occupation. So that is how basically we use the pandas. So there's going to be much more that we're going to be doing with these pandas as we proceed. Even NumPy, you can see we didn't just end in the last class. We're going to be, building on them, but to have the whole understanding on how they work and how they function is what is important. Do you understand? Know how to use it, know how to basically implement each of them. Basically, we have implemented everything we've talked about, how pandas is being used. So that is that for this segment. So stay tuned, stay alive. Make sure that you go through this video, understand the basics, implement it. From class to class, we're going to be building on all of these libraries and we're going to see how we're going to be using them. Okay, so make sure you stay tuned, hit on the notification bell in case video like this comes up again so you don't miss out as well, and make sure you subscribe if you're just coming. Welcome to Blue Ghost Insight. Pandas is not an animal, instead pandas is something beautiful inside of Python that we use to manipulate data and other things that it can be used for. Okay, like always, stay safe and stay profitable.